Hello, Shiver Seekers. Are you ready to follow us into the unknown? I'm Cynthia.
And I'm Stephanie. You found the dark oak. Today's episode, I take you into the very sad and mysterious abduction and murder of Cook-Morrissey and Elizabeth Collins.
Welcome to the Dark Oak, the mystery podcast with purpose. Each month through our charity, the Branch of Hope Foundation, we give a portion of our proceeds from our Patreon and our sponsors. We give that directly to a nonprofit related. Whoa, hold on. We give a portion of proceeds from our Patreon and sponsors to a nonprofit related to the first episode of the month. To find out more, stick around to the end of this episode. Check out our website, thedarkoak.com, or head over to our Instagram, The Dark Oak Podcast.
Look at you. You're no rookie.
No, you would think I was. Like, wow. Wow,
a
Cynthia.
Seasoned professional.
So seasoned that, like, I said one word wrong and I was like, I forgot it all. What am I supposed to say?
Well, I know you were thriving on this cold weather. Otherwise, I would have blamed it on the cold weather because I am not. All I want to do is sit on my couch in front of my tiny little electric fireplace with one of my quilts and read a book. Anything else, though, no. It's a no-go for me.
Exact opposite for me. My kids and I, yesterday was Veterans Day, so my kids were home. We spent half the day outside running around, having Nerf gun wars. It was so much fun. You would never find me happily running around outside in the summer here, but oh man, I loved it. And my kids agreed. They said it was the best day ever. So, and it's Christmas.
Well,
See, at my house, October 31st happens, and then it's Christmas. So I already have one tree up. I have 3 or 4 more to go. Yeah, it's Christmas. Christmas music is playing. I'm on my 3rd Christmas movie. We are in it. So
what was the
it.
inaugural Christmas movie?
Oh, you know what? It was something, I can't think of it. I have to look it up because it was like a new one. It was really cute. It had Diane Keaton in it, and who was the man? Olivia Wilde. I'm not sure. It was cute. It was cute.
Okay.
I don't remember what.
I didn't know if you had like
maybe.
I didn't know you had like a go-to. Like we immediately start with Home Alone.
Oh, well, we were watching that last
choice.
night.
Yeah.
We were watching that last night. I think it may have been Christmas with the Coopers. That might have been what it was called.
That sounds familiar.
It was cute. I'd never seen it. Of course, my favorite is like Love Actually, The Grinch, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Christmas Story. You know, I have all the classics, but I really actually like the Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
I really do, because I am a sucker for like love. I really am. I'm a sucker for the love. So I love it. The romance, which is, I think, what I liked about the Christmas with the Coopers one. It was like, oh, of course they're gonna fall in love.
Yeah, one of our like cheesy Christmas movie lineups is Netflix A Christmas Prince.
I think I've seen one of those.
Yeah.
There's like a gazillion now, right?
Yeah, there is. They're not all created equal though. So
okay.
Just stick with the original. And I also really like that movie Noelle.
We watched that one yesterday
with Anna Kendrick. It's so cute. It's like one of my favorites.
It was cute.
I just love it.
Very like girl power. I liked the message behind it. I'd never seen it. Yeah. We watched that one yesterday. And I was like, oh, look at this. A girl.
Yeah, the part where she starts signing to the little deaf girl, I cry every time. I just think it's cute. So sweet.
Well, and
it's kind of very, to me, it heralds back to like, Miracle on 34th Street-esque, of like believe in the magic. And I really love that.
Yeah. And I love Anna Kendrick.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, pretty. It was cute.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad we got to talk about something upbeat and cheery and lovely, because today's episode is the opposite of those things, unfortunately. And truly, this is after much deliberation and going back and forth in my own mind about whether I had the gumption to actually cover this case. I know I teased it a little bit last week, but it's a story about two little girls who were abducted and murdered, and we still don't have answers. And this is going to be a two-parter. So a lot of material, a lot of research, a lot of time put into covering this case. And, I had to be really careful with cases with kids because it kind of takes me to a dark place. So after these 2 weeks, if the next case I bring is a little bit lighter in nature, like, don't be surprised because I'm bringing you the heavy hitter today. But one of the reasons I think it's important to cover it is because it is unsolved. These girls and their families, they deserve justice. And this didn't happen that long ago. I mean, this was in 2012. So somebody knows. And more than likely, the murderer, this monster that did this to these sweet, innocent girls, they could still face justice. And I want that so badly. I want that so badly in this case. Also, I'll get a little into it as we get into the episode, but this is kind of I don't want to call it like a landmark crime, but this type of crime is very unusual to have a double abduction. Very, very unusual. And I'll talk about how unusual it is as we get into it. So this is a very unique case as well. So I think it's very relevant to what we're doing on this podcast. So, I use multiple sources for this case. There was a 3-part limited series that came out on HBO Max called Taken Together, Who Killed Lyric and Elizabeth. So if you are more of a visual person and you want to actually see people saying things in their own words with their own mannerisms, if you're curious about some suspects as we move forward, there are some that you can see on that documentary. So hop on over there. Now, I will tell you, HBO Max, it's behind a paywall, so it requires a subscription. So, if paying $20 a month for a single streaming service is not for you, don't worry. There is nothing that you're going to see on that on that series that I won't cover here. However, if again you want to see people actually saying things in their own words, that's available to you as well. Also, before we begin, again, this episode is going to contain crimes against children. So if you are sensitive to that, this may not be the episode for you. I don't go into detail, but this case does also cover sexual assault against children, which is a very difficult topic. So again, please listen with care. Again, I don't go into any great detail, but just know a lot of these crimes are unfortunately sexually motivated. So it's very difficult to cover these cases without at least, bringing it up, without at least mentioning it. So, yeah, I'm going to take a sip of my coffee here.
All right, I'll do it with you.
Then we'll get into it.
Cheers.
It's been a wild morning, guys.
It has. It has. A wild week.
It has.
And it's only halfway over.
That's right. All right, friends, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So, Lyric and Elizabeth were 10 and 8-year-old cousins who were reported missing on Friday, July 13th, 2012. Friday the 13th, by the way.
Which is my lucky day. I love Friday the 13th. We watch scary movies. I know it's supposed to be unlucky, but I just decided years ago that they're going to be fun days, and they are. I have so many happy things happen to me on Friday the 13th. Now, this case is going to change that, but
it will. It will. Friday, July 13th, 2012. Not a happy day, unfortunately. And the girls disappeared from Evansdale, Iowa. And as we know, they were just sweet, innocent girls who fell prey to what I refer to as an actual monster. Now, up until this point, it's still a faceless, nameless monster, but I'm hoping that further coverage of this case, gosh, I really am hoping we'll see some justice soon. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to make you feel like you want to live in a cave away from humanity for the rest of your life because I'm going to introduce you to the girls through excerpts from their obituaries.
Ugh. I'm already tearing up, Stephanie. So, when you told me you were covering this case and that they were little girls, I was shocked because I know how hard that is for you and for us. And I'm already tearing up. I have a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Oof.
I have already cried a lot over this case, so I'm hoping I can get through it without tearing up, but there's no guarantees. But something in me is telling me it's important to cover this. Not for the salaciousness of it, not in any way to what is it they call it, like murder porn and stuff. Like, if you heard that
Oh,
phrase, like, like these documentaries that all they do is show like gory
yeah,
crime,
yeah.
crime scene photos and things like that. Like, that is not why we're talking about this. But these little girls, their lives were taken in a horrible way, and someone needs to pay for that. And we need to make sure that it doesn't happen to anyone else.
And if it were our loved ones, our children, we would want people to be aware so they could find
I would.
this
I know
monster.
I would. I
Right.
know I
Right.
would. I would want my children's cases to be covered responsibly.
Right.
You know,
Responsibly. Keyword, but yes.
yeah,
Mhm.
responsibly, but I would want it to be covered.
Sure.
Yeah, with respect and responsibly. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Lyric Ray Lynn Cook-Morrissey was born on October 2nd, 2001, in Waterloo to Dan and Misty Morrissey. She had attended Kingsley Elementary School and was 10 years old. Lyric was a very special young lady. She was an infectious joy to be around with a smile that radiated with love. In her short years, Lyric came to know the Lord Jesus Christ and the importance of salvation through Jesus for the people of the world. She had a heart of compassion for her family and her friends. Lyric enjoyed bowling, cheerleading, and gymnastics. Lyric loved to be outside playing, snow, rain, or shine. Most seen with Lyric's unconditional love for her family and her special love for her brother Dylan. Her desire to have fun within those loving relationships was seen while going to church, sharing devotions with her parents in the morning, and card games with her grandmother in the afternoons. Elizabeth June Marie Collins was born at Allen Memorial Hospital in Waterloo, Iowa on July 31st, 2003, the daughter of Drew and Heather Cook Collins. She was a student at Pointer Elementary School and was a bubbly little person with the best smile who loved what life had to give and all it had to offer. Elizabeth enjoyed dressing up and getting her nails and hair done. She loved singing, riding her bike, playing softball, and hockey. She had a big heart and a great love for animals. Elizabeth also enjoyed playing with her siblings and ordering them around. She enjoyed going on vacations and had traveled to many places. Many times were treasured as a family lying in bed, eating popcorn and watching movies. Elizabeth passed away on July 13th, 2012. She was 8 years old.
Say that again. I think you meant Friday, July
Oh,
13th, but you said February.
Elizabeth passed away on Friday, July 13th, 2012, and she was 8 years old.
Okay.
So, a breath. just
Yeah.
just the heaviness
Mhm.
of that is so hard. They just sounded like just sweet.
I
Just sweet.
know.
Just
Oh,
sweet and
yes.
innocent.
Yes, I saw, the loving animals and wanting to dress up, and took me back to my own childhood. It made me think of you when you were a little kid. Just
Yeah.
these are just precious little girls. These could be
Yep.
anybody's little girls.
Yep. The girls disappeared from a small town called Evansdale in Iowa. Now, this is the quintessential small town. The population was less than 5,000, and it was considered safe. Kids walked to the park or to the store, and they rode their bikes in the neighborhood. No one locked their doors. Everyone knew their neighbors. So, this is not a place where you would ever expect something like this to happen. It wasn't a place you were constantly looking over your shoulder or like watching your kids' every move. This is a place you felt like you were safe, that your family was safe. Now, Lyric and Elizabeth are cousins. Their mothers, Misty and Heather, are sisters who are less than a year apart in age. Now, in interviews I have seen, both moms have admitted they're very different from each other. They're the yin and the yang. However, the cousins, Lyric and Elizabeth, were super close. Like, it was almost like they were sisters. So the moms don't necessarily have a super close relationship, but their children do. They loved hanging out together and seeing each other regularly. And this worked out perfectly because the girls' grandmother, Wilma, helped to watch the girls when their mothers were working. And again, this is during the summer. So there was lots of time for them to spend together.
So
Now,
fun.
Wilma would usually say it again.
So fun.
It's so fun. So fun. Like, what a fun time to be alive,
Yeah.
right? To
Yeah.
be 8 and 10 and hang with your cousins all day in the
Hmm.
summer. And this would normally happen either over at Wilma's house or Heather's house. So they would plan on where the girls were going to be dropped off or coordinate where they were going to spend the day. During this time period, though, Lyric's parents, Dan and Misty, were newly separated. So Misty and her children were actually living with Wilma. So in the morning of July 13th, Wilma took Lyric with her over to Heather's house so she could help out by watching the girls and letting them play together. Now, around noon, Wilma was getting ready to make lunch when the girls asked if they could go on a bike ride. And Wilma told them they could, but they shouldn't go far because Misty, Lyric's mom, was getting off work at 1 o'clock and she had plans to pick her up so they could go swimming at the swimming pool. Now, remember, this is the middle of the summer and temperatures in Iowa were in the high 90s that day.
Oh.
So, Misty planned to pick up the kids, take them to the pool. It was going to be a great summer afternoon. But when Misty got to Heather's house, Wilma told her the girls hadn't come back from their bike ride. Now, at first, the two just assumed the girls had stopped at a friend's house, like kids do. But shortly after, when Heather also arrived home, the girls had still not come. And this is when everybody started to feel like something may not be right. And then Drew also came home, and there were still no girls. So at this point, it's safe to say everybody was feeling like something was amiss. That
Oh.
that feeling that every parent has had when you don't see your kids, even at like a grocery store, when all of a sudden they're not where you think they're going to be. That moment of panic, like that's what I envision happening right now. Of like, but you're also trying to talk yourself down. Like, okay, don't panic. They're probably just on the other aisle. Don't freak out. But meanwhile, every instinct in your body is like freak out right now.
Well, and I know for me, I've had a couple of those moments, and they may have lasted 10 seconds. The one that was the worst, maybe 5 minutes, where I couldn't find my son in this public place. Um, and that, those minutes, those seconds feel like eternity. So I cannot imagine having to wait for, okay, more time ticking by, and like they're still not there, and you're not wanting to be like overreactive, just all the things. Like what a hellacious position to be in.
I'm so glad that you said that too, because I felt the same thing in that HBO Max special. taken together, Wilma in an interview said they started driving around. Like they got in the car and drove around. She said they drove around for about an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And in my notes, I said, I recognize that she said it was an hour, but it probably felt like days. Like
Oh,
an hour probably felt like an eternity when you can't find your kids.
oh my gosh. And again, I see what they're doing. They're not wanting to like jump to conclusions. They're wanting to be responsible about it. Um they're wanting it to be okay. Ugh.
Yeah.
And man, that's just what an awful. Well, I mean, I still have very vivid memories of, that one time in particular. And again, it was maybe 5 minutes. I can't imagine something like this.
Yeah. To give you an idea of how strongly they felt like something was wrong, though, by 2:42 that afternoon. So remember, Wilma had just seen them at noon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Wilma had just seen them at noon. By 2:42, Heather was already in the Evansdale Police Department reporting the girls as missing.
So they
Like
were
they did
moving
that.
fast.
Oh, they did that fast. And after that hour, they were like, well, that's enough. That's enough of that.
Yeah.
Like, our girls are missing.
Oh,
Like, somebody needs to come help us. Now, to the police's credit, they started working on the case immediately. And at first, because of the circumstances, there was some thought that maybe the girls had simply gone to a friend's house, maybe to get in some air conditioning. Again, it was a very hot day. Maybe they lost track of time. And I understand this being a possibility, right? Like I could still see that. Again, they are 8 and 10 years old. And from what I read, they're pretty responsible, but it could happen, right? So I don't think the police were in any way brushing it off. They just said that's probably the most likely possibility, knowing what we know. But to be fair, they went out and they started canvassing the neighborhood. They started, first they went to the girls' friends' houses, but then they started going to other houses, knocking on the door, like, hey, are two girls here? So they were actively searching, but they were just searching, I think, in the most reasonable way at that point.
sure. Well, and that thankfully, thankfully, most of the time when you can't find your kid, they're around the corner or
Right.
they're at a friend's house or they just lost track of time. Like, thankfully, most of the time you find them and it is okay.
Right.
So I can see them, saying, okay, relax. Well,
Right. Right. Right.
because most
But
of the time, thank God, most of the time children aren't out being murdered.
no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But in addition, they also enlisted the help of the local fire department to do a search of the surrounding area, like
Good.
wooded areas, backyards, those kinds of things. So I think they were handling this proportionate
Sure.
to the concern. I really do.
Sure.
Now, fortunately, it didn't take them long to find a disturbing clue. Around 4 p.m., authorities found the girls' abandoned bikes about a mile away along the edge of Meyers Lake. Now, upon hearing the discovery, the girls' parents immediately traveled to Meyers Lake Park to not only identify the bikes, but also to help search for the girls, because the idea is they may be in that area. Unfortunately, again, they found in the bushes, flung over a fence on the southeast corner of the lake, Elizabeth's little purse, which contained her phone. And this part, oh, okay. I said I wasn't going to get teary, but I may, because I will tell you this tiny detail literally is like soul crushing. But her purse that had the little phone in it was a little Hannah Montana purse. And again, it just speaks to the innocence
Right.
um that was there, that was taken away.
Hmm.
That was taken away. And it almost doesn't seem real. Like how could these two things be happening? It was at this point though that everybody realized something was very wrong. Not only the family, but the police force said, okay, this isn't kids just being irresponsible, or messing around. Something really not great is happening here. Now, from what I gather, Meyers Lake isn't like a swimming type of lake. It's more for fishing, and there are parks around it and trails. Um, but it's not the kind of lake you go swimming in. Like, it's kind of murky and full of
Mm.
algae.
Mm.
So this isn't somewhere you would have expected the girls to go in the water. However, the girls' bikes were found very near the gated entrance to the park. And after searching the surrounding area, officials saw that an additional gate that leads to an overflow on the south side of the lake had been left open, meaning that anybody could have accessed the lake waters. So let me explain that a little bit more. This lake is naturally fed by multiple springs, but it's also very useful for drainage, like road water runoff. So it's outfitted with what they call an overflow, or I would call like a spillway, that would allow excess water to drain out of the lake during times of increased waterfall. And close to where the bikes were found, there was a gate that like led out to the overflow where they could do maintenance and things on it. So, rightfully so, one of the lead investigators on the case theorized that the girls may have tried to go swimming and somehow got caught up in like a current from this overflow and drowned. Again, it was in the high 90s that day. I mean, the water was kind of ick. So I don't know if little girls would have decided to go in there, but I think the theory makes sense, right? When you're
Oh,
grasping at straws, I think that is a reasonable theory to follow.
well, we have 2 missing girls and their bikes and belongings are found near big body of water. I mean, that's probably the first place I would look. And I don't know, I'm trying to think back to when I was 8 and 10. They'd already planned on going swimming that day, so we know they loved swimming. I don't know, at 8 years old or 10 years old, I don't know that I would have been paying attention to the quality of the water. I probably would have been like, "Oh, let's jump in." Now, if this was something that they lived nearby and they were just like, "Oh, never go swimming in there," and it was like common knowledge that you don't go swimming, I think that's different. Like for us growing up, it would have been alligators. Like I would have known you
Mhm.
don't get in certain bodies of water because of alligators. But
Right.
they don't have alligators there. So,
No. And there were some other theories too that possibly they had just been walking in the water. Like maybe they were just cooling off their feet and one of them
sure.
fell in. Like maybe there was like a drop off or something, or somebody got injured or something like that. So it wasn't necessarily like they like dove in, but maybe one thing led to another thing that led to another thing that led to a tragedy.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, my heart would be thumping if I were those parents.
For sure. So again, the police department called in the fire department to start dragging the bottom of the lake around the edge of this overflow. So for the remainder of the daylight that they had that day, officials searched the spillway and the surrounding area, but they came up empty-handed. Now, based on these findings, authorities began to realize again that something is really amiss. And again, this isn't just the kids being mischievous or irresponsible, something bad has happened to them. Around 10 p.m. that night, the immediate search was called off
Oh.
because they had run out of daylight. They weren't really sure where else to go at that point. And in this taken together series, you can hear the pain even now in the parents' voices when they said, how can you stop a search at this point? Like, how can, and I guess someone had, one of the moms, I think it was Misty, had even said that one of the detectives told her, like, go home and get some rest, we'll start in the morning. And she's like, uh, how? How on this planet could I ever lay down knowing that 2 little girls are out there somewhere?
I'm a little surprised to hear that the search was called off, so quickly because these are 8 and 10-year-olds. Now, I understand maybe they've searched everywhere and there's nowhere else, but I don't know. I
I
don't
will tell
know.
you, I will tell you, when I say called off, I just mean for that night, because what I
Sure.
will tell you is the next morning early, they hit the pavement running. So I think this was a, like, let's go back and regroup. I don't think they communicated that to the family very well,
Mhm.
but I think it was more like okay, we followed all the leads up into this point. Let's think about where we can go next. I think the Evansdale Police Department also realized they needed more help. And so
Okay.
I think they were going to go back because the next morning they had a whole slew of help. The Evansdale Police Chief, Kent Smock, invited the Waterloo Police Department, the Cedar Falls Police Department, the Black Hawk County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, and the Iowa DCI to join the search and investigation.
Okay.
So that all happened overnight, but that doesn't take away from the fact that those parents had to go back to their houses knowing no one was actively searching for their girls, which I think would have just been the worst nightmare.
Sure, I think I would have just taken my flashlight and walked around myself calling out names. I mean, you don't go home and you don't get rest. I do wish they had communicated that differently, because it does sound like you're saying, it does sound like they didn't actually, like, just clock out for the night. "Sorry, guys, it's quitting time."
Right.
But, I mean, an 8 and 10-year-old little girl, I don't know, I just don't think you ever take a break or stop.
Right.
And if you're
Right.
going to regroup, then maybe express that to the parents, not, you know, not, "Hey, we'll start back
See you
up
in the
again."
morning. Like, it just
Right, "Get
seems
some
so.
rest, sweet dreams."
Yeah. Yeah. So, oh, I just I hate it for them, for the parents. But again, I don't think the investigation took a nosedive by any means, but I imagine in that very moment, it was so disheartening. That's probably not even the best word for it, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes, and obviously, because we're covering this case, well, you've already told us that it doesn't end well, so I have such sadness for these parents and thinking, "Okay, well, maybe," and then remembering, "No, it's not gonna end well." Like, the story doesn't have a happy ending. Ugh,
Right.
just
Right.
awful.
Right. But I but I was encouraged by the police response to this case. It didn't end up like we want it to, but they really consider this an all hands on deck situation, and I do feel like they handled that part correctly, at least. And I love that. We've talked about on this podcast several times about certain police forces being not cooperative with other
Oh,
authorities,
sure.
or wanting to be protective of their investigation,
Mhm.
or um, again, just not playing nice in the sandbox.
Right.
Uh, Evansdale said, "No, the more help, the better," and
Okay.
just invited it in. And I'm encouraged by that.
Sure. And as a lesson to all, other departments who are, wanna because I can only assume when departments don't want to, invite others in, it's because they want all the credit for themselves. But look, we're giving credit to the department who recognized what they couldn't do alone and asked for help.
Great point.
We're
Really
giving
good
them
point.
a lot of credit.
Yeah, be that guy.
Right,
Be the guy that's open.
right,
Be the guy that's open to getting help for the sake of your victims.
right.
Be that guy. Now, at this point, the media was also starting to hear about this story, and it became national news. We're talking like Nancy Grace kind of coverage. It was everywhere.
Sure, 2
And
children, 2 little kids, sure.
and it stands to reason, let's take it even one step further, because let's be real, it was two missing white girls,
Okay, I was
which
thinking
we
that.
know.
I was
Yeah,
thinking
let's just
that.
call a spade,
I
Cynthia.
know.
It is. I mean, I'm not commenting on right, wrong, whatever, but it is.
Right,
It's the fact of the
right.
matter.
It is.
Um, so, coverage was almost certain. However, there's also something additional to this case. See, in the United States, since the 1970s, up until these two girls had disappeared, there had only been 15 double abductions of children in the whole United States.
I will tell you, I don't know that I ever gave thought to that.
Me either. Me either. 15. Literally, these girls were number 16 out of decades. I mean, we're
Wow.
talking 50 years.
So statistically speaking, if you send your kids out together and tell them to stay together, that actually does provide quite a bit of safety.
Yeah. There's nothing to say that, a perpetrator wouldn't single one out if
Sure,
one falls
sure.
behind or one wanders off. But yes,
But
if you send your kids out and they stay, there really is safety in numbers. That is not something made up or some kind of wives' tale or cautionary tale. Like, this is for real.
right,
Uh, Only 15. So this is number 16. So this is a big deal. This case is a big deal. And it does make sense too, right? Like, if you're an assailant, even if you're, say, a large man trying to overpower two girls, you still have to like, you still have to keep them from running or screaming, or like, how do you get two girls?
right, right. Well, and I remember following the Delphi case, which is I don't know what number it is, but that's
We
one
will
of
talk
those
about that. Yeah, we'll
anomalies.
get to that. Yeah. uh, Go ahead. Say that again.
But I remember following the Delphi case and hearing later on, investigators saying, they did what they believed to be right because neither one of them was gonna leave their friend, which, ugh, breaks my heart. But if they had ran in opposite directions, they would have had a better chance because one person, it's hard to control two people. So
Right.
if one runs one direction and one runs the other direction, they may have nowhere to go but just get out of there. The bad guy, just
Right.
just get out of there.
Right.
Which of course goes against everything you would think in that moment. Of course, you're not going to run away from your friend. You're going to stay together.
Right.
But all that to say, I'm just confirming that yes, no matter how big you are and how little they are, it is hard to control two people. Just want to
Sure.
say that.
Sure. And we'll talk actually about the Delphi case. I think it was I'm gonna look at it was either 18 or 19.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, literally, we're still
Wow.
talking very small numbers here. But when the Delphi case happened, there was a lot of people that talked about similarities in this case. And we'll talk about the ones in between this case and the Delphi case, that also, because of how peculiar and unusual it is, could we be talking about the same person? So again, because that MO is so rare, anyone that happens, everybody immediately wants to point back to this unsolved case.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how small we're
Okay.
talking about. A very small fraction of crimes are double abductions of children. I just found that statistic completely shocking.
I would have never have known that, ever. I would have never have known that.
I feel like we need to be talking about that more. Like, send your kids out in pairs. Like,
Sure, honestly, teach them what to do if something bad were to
mhm,
happen. Teach
right?
them, "Okay, you run to one direction, the other runs." Teach them these skills.
Yeah,
Um
yeah. One step further than, like, don't get in a van if they promise you a puppy. you
Right,
know?
right. And then at the same time, man, it's like these are these conversations that are so hard. Like I hate having these conversations with my kids because they're so innocent and so sweet. And I hate having to even introduce them to the fact that there are people out there who might want to do terrible things. So, man, just hard.
I know. It's like, the school shooter drills. I
Oh, I hate
hate
it.
I hate that that's a part of our educational system, a necessary part at this point. I hate that that's a thing. I remember one of the first conversations that I had with my kids about someone might try to hurt you. And, my son said, well, I would just tell them that I'm nice and then they'll be
Oh,
nice.
oh,
And I just honestly, I think I just walked away from that conversation being like, that's enough for today. Like, I don't want to tell you that this world can be mean.
Right.
You're going to find out soon enough, through other methods. And even now, just because of our fostering journey, our kids have been exposed to, the struggling side of humanity, people that have not made great choices or people that have had things happen even out of their control. But just knowing that the world is not always fair. And um, yeah, it's just hard. It's just really hard. And there's no one size fits all for this kind of thing either. But I did find the fact that double abductions were rare to be strangely comforting in one respect, but also I'm grateful that that's the case.
Sure. I'm just shocked. Like you said, I'm just shocked. I'm shocked.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, based on this widespread news coverage, volunteers started coming out in droves to help search for the missing girls. They searched on foot, they searched with boats, with ATVs, and with planes using thermal imaging. Additional door to door canvassing of the area was also done specifically to individuals in the area who were on the sex offender registry, because unfortunately, they couldn't find any additional leads. So they thought, well, let's try that. We're kind of like going back to basics here. Is there somebody, because two missing girls, you have to assume at least that the crime might have been sexually motivated. So, they tried that angle, but unfortunately it didn't yield any additional clues. Now, they did, because of this additional canvassing, find video surveillance showing the girls riding their bikes between 12:30 and 1 p.m. on Gilbert Drive, not far from Meyers Lake, because there was a question of had the girls gone there on their own or had somebody taken them there. So it looked like they went to Meyers Lake on their own, which both of the moms found unusual because, again, it was about a mile to the lake, and it was a place the girls had gone before, but the parents didn't even realize they knew how to get there, because they had always gone with an adult. And so they didn't even know this was somewhere they would have tried to go. So they're not sure why the girls made that decision to go there.
That's interesting. That's an
Mhm.
I was gonna ask you earlier, is this a place they were known to go? Because to me, to ride your bike a mile away at 8 and 10, to me, that's pretty far.
Uh,
But maybe there it wouldn't have been, or, I don't know.
yeah,
So I
we
was
just don't
curious
know.
about that. So it is unusual for them to have gone there.
As far as the families know, the girls had not been there on their bikes before.
Okay.
So this would have been their first time going there. And then again, they're not really sure what led to that decision to go.
That's weird. Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Alright, so that makes me think all kinds of things, but they didn't have internet access, 8 and 10.
They did. They did. We're getting a little bit further down in the case, but I will tell
Okay.
you, their computers and hard drives were investigated, and they did not find that the girls were chatting with anybody or that there was any, attempt to meet someone that may have abducted them or something like that. They
And
didn't find
phone
any.
too, because they had a
Yeah.
phone. Okay. Mm,
They had a phone, but it doesn't sound like they found any strange activity on there that would have led to an abduction.
okay. I'm getting
But it
ahead
does
of you.
seem
I'll
odd.
wait. I'm getting ahead, so I'll wait, but that's interesting to me that they just
Yeah.
happened to go somewhere they didn't normally go, and then this happens. Alright, tell me
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. They did find additional witnesses who knew the girls, either knew them from the neighborhood or knew them. Again, this is a small town, so everybody knew the
Sure,
girls,
sure.
and apparently one neighbor, they rode by like, "Hey, Mr. Bob," and he knew who they were. So there were several other witnesses who saw them riding their bikes between 12 and 1. Now, all this really does is give us a timeline, a timestamp, lets us know that they were on their own, They, as far as we know on the footage, there wasn't any evidence that they were being followed or that anyone else was with them. So really all it does is give us a timestamp, and then it lets us know what they were wearing at the time that they disappeared. It's just
Mm,
confirmation of what they were wearing.
mm-hmm.
Now, after running out of additional leads in this direction, detectives decided to full out drain Meyers Lake to make sure that nothing had been missing. Now, this is no small undertaking. According to the Department of Natural Resources, Meyers Lake measures a distance of 33 acres and has a maximum depth of 40 feet. So this is
That's
a massive undertaking.
yeah, yeah. What are they going to do with that water? Where
I
are they
don't
going to
know
put it?
where they
Okay,
put it. I don't know where they put it. I know it took them days to
sure.
drain the lake. I don't know. I don't know where that overflow went. I mean, maybe it just went into like a sewer system.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure. They didn't share the mechanics of it, but a massive
Yeah,
undertaking.
that's a pretty good sized lake.
Yeah, big. And I'll be frank, after listening to detectives talk about this, all the lead detectives admitted that they didn't fully expect to find the girls by draining the lake, but by completing this task, they could at least say for certainty that the girls weren't in the lake. It's almost like a Hail Mary, with the unlikely outcome of finding the girls, but the more probable conclusion saying, okay, at least we can definitively cross this off the list and move on to something else.
I mean, that makes sense to me. I have no problem with that. And I see why they think they're not going to find the girls, because they have like dredged the lake. They've looked. There's nothing obvious saying the girls are there, but they can't say for sure the girls aren't there. So I get it. Like, well, we don't really know what else to do. So let's just rule this out completely.
I I, I applaud it,
As a
honestly.
parent, I would be like, drain the lake.
Yep. I mean, I like it. This leave no rock
Sure.
unturned. So I have a lot of respect for them. They literally had to go to the mayor and get approval to drain this lake. Um, but they said at least we'll know for 100% sure, because what if we spend all these resources and have these parents up and they're in the lake the whole
The
time,
whole time.
you know?
Right. And that's like you said, resources, that's money, that's time, that's effort, that's extra manpower. That's a big project. And they were willing to do it fully believing probably nothing would come from it other than them being able to say, okay, we can check this off the list. So yeah,
Yeah.
good for them. So far I've been overall happy with the police department on this case.
Same. Same. I agree with you. I feel like they would be the people I would want on my kid's case, which is really quite complimentary, I think.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't any surprise when they didn't find any evidence of the girls in the lake. Now, at the same time authorities were examining the lake, investigators were also looking into the background of the families to see if there could possibly be some involvement there. And sadly, we know this is a possibility. Unfortunately, parents can hurt children, and siblings can hurt siblings. In the HBO Max series Taken Together, Larry Hudlin of the Iowa DCI explained that ruling out a family in the case of violent crimes is like investigation 101.
Well, and you said, we know it's a possibility, isn't it? Accurately, a probability, quite frankly,
Yeah.
right? It's the
Yeah.
probability that it's parents, family, someone they know.
Someone they know.
I mean,
Exactly.
hard to swallow that, but
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Elizabeth's mom and dad, Drew and Heather, were very forthcoming and cooperated with authorities. They handed over their DNA, their fingerprints, their children's DNA and fingerprints, hard drives, journals, anything and everything. Drew told journalists in Taken Together something to the effect of like, when your kid goes missing, you give them everything. Like, you don't question anything. You don't hesitate. You give them anything they ask for.
that makes perfect sense to me.
To me too. I mean,
Mhm.
I I probably should ask questions about things I wouldn't even, because I'm like,
Right.
what if this is the thing that
Yeah.
helps find my kid? I
Whatever
will
I
give
can
you
do.
anything.
In this
Anything.
powerless moment, this moment where I have no power, I'm completely hopeless. If I can give you DNA, I will give you DNA. Something
I
I
will
can
give
do.
you everything. Yep, exactly. Exactly. Unfortunately, Lyric's parents, Dan and Misty, though, were a little less forthcoming. See, Dan and Misty have had previous run ins with law enforcement. In fact, it was very recent involvement because it turned out that both Dan and Misty had previously served prison time for federal drug convictions. When Misty was 8 months old, with Lyric, she received a 3-year sentence in federal prison for conspiracy to manufacture methamphetamines for
Um,
a charge
when she was 8 months pregnant.
with Lyric. Yeah.
Can you say
Did
that
I say
again?
that?
You said
Okay.
when she was 8 months old.
Oh, sorry. When Misty was 8 months pregnant with Lyric, she received a 3-year sentence in federal prison for conspiracy to manufacture methamphetamines for a charge she had obtained before her pregnancy. So she had the charge before she was pregnant. She got pregnant, but then she was actually convicted and sentenced while she was pregnant with Lyric.
And she was,
Now, 8 months pregnant with Lyric.
oh no.
Now, they did delay her sentencing because of the pregnancy,
Okay.
but she went into a federal prison when Lyric was 18 months old, and she spent time in prison until Lyric was 4.
That's so sad.
She
That's
missed
just,
out on, yeah, those, so like those developmental years. Very challenging.
it's rough.
Dan also had a checkered past. He had been previously charged with domestic assault, forgery, theft, and burglary. And not long before the disappearance of Lyric and Elizabeth, Dan was charged with conspiracy to manufacture methamphetamines and possession of marijuana with intent to deliver. Now, in his own words, he was essentially a meth cook. Now, after 6 months in jail for his most recent charges, he bonded out. At the time of the girl's disappearance, he had only been out on bond for about a month.
Hmm.
The day before the girls went missing, Dan was negotiating a plea deal that he ultimately didn't take. Literally the day before their disappearance. Now, apparently, the DA had offered him 30 years, but a condition of the deal was that he would be immediately taken into custody. Now, Dan argued that he should be able to say goodbye to his children because when he had gone to the negotiation, he hadn't told them he would be going to prison that day. I, I don't I don't necessarily know if I understand that.
And
He also argued,
the deal
go
was
ahead.
30 years was the
Yeah.
deal?
Wait till you figure out what he actually got. I'll get into that later. But the deal, yeah. So, um, it it I think it was a lot of meth. I think is what we're gonna go with here.
I mean, I
30
don't know
years
much
was the
about,
deal.
like, drug charges and stuff. To be fair, I don't really know much about it, but I'm 30 years? There are people who kill people who don't get 30 years.
30 years. That was the deal.
Dang, man, don't make meth. My gosh. My goodness.
Uh yeah. There was also marijuana in there. I
Oh,
think they also had thrown in like the domestic assault charges as well, because there was a domestic assault charge against Misty. I think they
oh
happened at
no.
different times, but I think it was like that will not go away. But you know what I mean? It was like they're trying to get a deal for all of his charges,
Okay, but 30
kind of
years,
rolled into
that's a
one.
long time. 30 years.
30 years.
There are literally murderers who don't get 30 years. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I just had to, like, gawk at that for a minute.
You took a moment. You needed a
Yeah.
moment.
I was like, "Did she mean 30 months?" 30 years. Okay.
No,
Wow.
30 no, 30
Okay.
years.
Alright.
But again, the condition of the deal is he would have had to go right then. And he said, "Well, I need to go say bye to my children." And then there was also this issue where I'm trying to be
Oh, I know what you're gonna say.
I I don't know. I'm trying to be kind, but he was really upset at the fact that he had just spent all that money to bond out and then he was going to go back into jail so quickly.
Oh, that's not what I thought you were gonna say, but, okay. Um,
And I'm like, well, okay, but just because you're out on bond,
doesn't
like,
mean you're out. Okay.
yeah. So
All
anyway, I
right.
think when he bonded out, he expected to have more time, like, out of prison. Here's the deal. I think in his mind, he knew he was going away for a really long time. And I
Mm-hmm.
think he was, trying to make the most of it. I'm not saying he was a bad guy. I don't know for sure. Um, but, I think he might have been trying to kind of work it to his advantage the best way that he could, I guess is a nice way to say it. So okay. So let me like recap all that. So the day
Okay.
before Lyric and Elizabeth disappear, he was in a plea deal where they offered him 30 years, but he had to go to prison that day. He said no and walked out. He said, I'm not taking that deal, which meant that the case now had to be set for retrial. And then the next day, Lyric and Elizabeth go missing.
How old was he?
36?
Okay.
36.
Because a 30-year sentence when you're 36, I mean, that's a good chunk of your life. Now I realize he's not going to do all that. He's not going to serve all that. But I'm just thinking, like, okay, if that were me, and I honestly felt like I was going to prison for the rest of my life, because that's kind of what that feels like in a lot of ways,
Oh,
right?
I would consider it that.
I might not take the because, as long as I'm not in prison, that's time I'm not in prison. Because once I
Well,
go, I'm not getting out.
that's kind of what I was saying is I think he knew he was going away for a long time, and
Yeah.
I think he was just trying to work it to his
Yeah.
best
Just as
advantage.
much time as I can kill before I have to go. Because when I go, I'm gone for.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen that written or spoken anywhere, but
I think that's what I would think.
I think that's reasonable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To try to
So,
do.
okay.
But as you can imagine, when all of this came to light, it raised a lot of eyebrows, right?
It
Like,
does, but are we suggesting that he's responsible for making his daughter and his niece disappear? Because doesn't he have other stuff on his mind? Like prepping
well,
for trial so you don't go away
well,
for the rest of your life?
well, maybe, but law enforcement started to go down the rabbit hole of could he have made them disappear in order to get sympathy for his sentencing.
Well, that's a big
Um
leap to
and,
take.
and it's not necessarily even that he had hurt them or murdered them, but maybe he's hiding them somewhere. Maybe he's hiding them in order to get sympathy from the judge, sympathy from the community, whatever it was.
Did it work? Did he
Um
go to prison?
yes, he's absolutely in
Okay,
prison.
so it didn't work,
Um
if that's
it
what he.
didn't work. It didn't work, but they weren't but again, I mean hindsight, right? It
I
didn't
don't
actually
know.
work.
I don't
But
think that now I'm not a hardened criminal, to be fair, but I don't know that
what?
I'd be like, "You know
What?
what I need
Really?
to do in this moment?" I know, big surprise, especially since we've discussed in, our Escape from Alcatraz episode how I just know I'd be the cool girl in prison. I just know it. I'd run the place. Um,
You've been watching too much Orange is the New Black.
oh, yeah. I'm like, "Oh, no. I know how this works." Um, I don't know. I just think, man, he's already got a lot of stuff going on. Was he a good dad? I mean, besides the meth and the
I was like, well, I
but
mean,
but here's the thing.
so
Here's the thing. You can be a drug addict. You can be all kinds of things that maybe I personally don't agree with and still love your kid. Right? Can't you?
I think he loves his kids. I don't think he's a caretaker though. Like
Sure.
I think he was much more I think he was much more focused on his meth than his children, is my opinion of the situation.
And did he
Um
take the meth too? Like, was he a meth head?
yes. As a matter of fact, we'll get into more of what he says, but there is some thought of if he is involved, maybe he wasn't directly involved, but just because of his methamphetamine production could someone he was involved with have taken the children as some kind of retribution or something like that. And his argument against that is, I cook meth for my own use. So literally, he's like, I didn't have any money. So, and he was living with his mom at the time,
Making
who
meth? Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Oh, and you said it's a lot of meth. He's cooking that much meth for his own
Well,
use?
what he
Okay.
said was he would cook the meth, he would use what he wanted, and then he would like sell the rest. So the issue was maybe he owed money to someone. And of course, I mean, this is like when you're in the world of drugs, it seems silly to us, but he was like, that's nonsense. I just made my own drugs. I don't owe anybody money. And I'm like, why are you making drugs? But like, especially meth, because we know how bad that can be, to be exposed to those chemicals. Children are exposed to those chemicals.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it just, I do think he loved his kids. I also think he was involved in a lifestyle that kids should never be around.
Sure. Well, and now that I don't know why, for some reason, I just assumed he was just making the meth and not taking the meth. Again, I clearly don't know that much about this lifestyle because they probably go hand in hand. I did have a girl who I went to high school with who unfortunately got addicted to meth, and I went to visit her in the hospital, and she literally didn't know her own children's names. So if he's in that kind of a place, then I guess that changes things for me. I guess because at first I'm like, why would he make his daughter disappear? But when I think about that kind of a situation, maybe he could have made his daughter disappear and not even know it. He could have allowed his daughter to disappear and not even know it. Like you said, it could have been somebody else. So I guess they weren't safe with him is what I'm coming to the conclusion. They just weren't safe with him. So maybe it does have something to do with what happened. Okay.
So I don't know if you can just in broad strokes say he's a bad dad.
Right.
But I think he was not making choices to keep his kids safe.
Right.
So I don't know if that a bad dad makes. Maybe,
Right.
I guess it depends on where you draw the line. I do think he loved his children, but I think he loved the meth more.
Well, it does. That was like my friend. She was a beautiful person. Unfortunately, she passed away from the addiction. And she was a beautiful person. She was a beautiful, amazing, wonderful person. And it just took over. The meth took over.
And they do. They do.
Yeah.
Meth is, I think, just below heroin on the addictive properties. And it is very difficult to get off of. And I believe a lot of people that are on it would love to be off of it.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just so difficult.
Yeah.
So incredibly difficult. So, I mean, in Dan's case, you can see why detectives said, maybe this could lead us to answers. So they called Dan in to take a polygraph test. Now, according to Dan's own admission, he was high on methamphetamines at this time. And his excuse, on top of being a regular drug user, was that he was using the drugs to stay awake so that he could continue to look for the girls. Because when you're using methamphetamines regularly, you don't sleep. Your brain doesn't slow down in order to sleep. So he was saying he was using it almost intentionally to stay awake. It could have also just been the fact that he's a drug user and he's addicted to meth. He could have been using it anyway. I don't know the reason, but he had admitted to using drugs. He said, I had used them for 3 days straight. I had used methamphetamines for 3 days straight, which is not uncommon for those that regularly use the drugs.
Sure.
Essentially, you use them for 3 or 4 days, then you crash out, your body literally crashes, and then you start the cycle all over again. So,
and I imagine your lie detector test that you take when you're high probably means nothing no matter what the results are.
Well, here's where it gets complicated. Because according to Dan, again, he told authorities that he was under the influence and said, I don't want to take a lie detector test right now because I feel like the fact that I am high on methamphetamines is going to affect the outcome, which I think is also a reasonable conclusion.
Makes sense to me.
However, yeah, however, authorities told Dan it wouldn't matter. They said it's okay, it won't affect the results at all. However, shockingly, it did. It did. It came up, either as being untruthful, it came up as inconclusive, it came up as all the results that you would expect it to come up as. So authorities began telling Dan that he was a liar, that he was being untruthful, that he knew more than he was letting on. And according to Dan and Misty, based on this interaction with detectives, that's when they said, we're done. We're not talking to law enforcement anymore. And they said this was kind of because of their past interactions with law enforcement. It was almost like this, like, according to them, like PTSD of like, we're being accused of things, we're being possibly railroaded into things. We've already had not positive interactions with law enforcement. So according to them, that's when they decided to clam up, not talk to authorities anymore. Maybe that's true. But of course, the effect was law enforcement said, okay, well, we got you. You're being shady. You're being shady. You're not cooperating. You've got something to hide. So all the resources started going to investigating Dan and Misty.
And man,
Now,
if they're not responsible, that really stinks.
well, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Because they started having to investigate all these trails too. So again, maybe it's not necessarily Dan or Misty, but maybe it's somebody that they're associated with. Maybe it's somebody that they've done business with. Maybe it's somebody they invited over to their house to buy meth that then saw the girls. Who knows?
Right.
Right? When you're involved in this lifestyle, you don't know who you're going to expose your family to, your children to. And again, there was the thought of maybe it was some kind of organized crime, to which Dan said, no, that's not the case because I make my own meth. I don't buy meth from anybody. I make my own meth. There was also a rumor that Misty had cooperated with the federal government as an informant when she was incarcerated. So there was the idea of, was somebody seeking... You all right?
I'm home alone and my house just like shook in a weird way.
Like a truck went by?
No, this is like I don't know.
Did something fall? Was it a cat?
I don't think so. I'm on the other side of I don't know what it was, but it freaked me out enough to like make me feel like somebody's behind me. I don't think anybody's behind me, but it was just weird. Anyway, sorry. It was like it's an old house, so there's like I'm familiar with the noises and the shifts and the stuff like that. This was something weird.
And the ghosts?
I feel like there were ghosts in my last house, but I don't feel like there are any in this house.
Oh, all right.
Maybe one just moved in.
That was it. He's here.
Gosh, can you wait till I'm done recording at least?
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to report that to this day, there is still a real rift between these two families that are related. Dan and Misty feel violated because they feel like they were not treated the same way in the investigation as Drew and Heather were. Now I will add this. Dan went back to complete another polygraph test when he was sober and he passed.
Oh,
There's
okay.
that. There is that.
Well, and here's the thing. I realize it's like of their own doing, but I totally get why Dan and Misty wouldn't feel safe in the presence of police.
Sure.
They've
No,
never been on the
same
team. They've never been on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, I'm not saying that's the police's fault, but it's just the case. It's just the facts, right? It's just these have never been the people I feel safe with. Quite the opposite. So now suddenly these people who I don't trust, who I've lied to my whole life, who all the things, they want me to, talk about XYZ. And maybe if they were withholding information, like you said, it wasn't even about the girls. It was about other things they didn't want to get caught for. So it's just a really messy situation. At the same time, I totally see why the police have to like check out all of these leads too. Like if, if you're not being forthcoming and it feels like you might know something, I understand why we have to check that out. And I understand why the families like are, there's this division. So just that's just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate.
It's really unfortunate. It really is. I mean, I think that's the word for it. And Drew and Heather, I mean, when they're ever asked about this, like, do you think Misty or Dan could have been involved? I mean, it's always kind of like this mixed reaction of like, they could have been, but I pray they aren't.
So they've not been ruled out then, is what I'm hearing.
Well, here's the deal. They have, but the case is still unsolved, right? So, I don't know. I don't know that anybody really knows for certainty. I don't think anyone thinks at this point that Dan and Misty were directly involved with making the girls disappear.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that somebody they associated with that they weren't even aware of had something to do with it.
Right.
And so they may not even be aware of something that happened. But I think, more than likely in Heather and Drew's mind, they still maybe even harbor resentment that somebody that Misty and Dan associated with could have done this to the girls. Even if it wasn't Dan and, I would kind of feel a little like that.
So I'm still mad at you. Yeah.
Yeah. Just, especially when it comes to the disappearance of your child. Like, I can forgive a lot of things, but if you think that their lifestyle made your daughter be murdered, I think that would be pretty hard to move past.
Yeah.
And then, Misty and Dan have resentment because they feel like Heather and Drew were treated differently in this. Meanwhile, they're saying our daughter disappeared too. We're grieving just like they are, yet they're getting different treatment than we are because of their criminal past.
I mean, I see where they're coming from if they're innocent, where it's like, don't blame, like my daughter went missing too, but at the same time, you have to look at the whole picture. You have to understand the part you played in that.
I mean, I agree with you too. I think if they truly are innocent, I think that would be really hard to be accused of doing something.
Sure.
And then additionally, now you've lost all your family support too, because everybody else thinks you might be involved. But I think the real crux of all of this is the time wasted chasing Dan and Misty because they were not cooperative from the beginning. And I'm not arguing whether that was right or wrong, because like you said, they've never been on the same side as law enforcement. So learning how to cooperate with law enforcement is not something they've been conditioned to do.
Right.
But spending time chasing them took away resources, took away time that you can't get back.
Right.
That you can't get back because they essentially made themselves persons of interest.
Right.
Now, on a side note, on September 13th, 2013, so a little more than a year later, a Waterloo Cedar Falls judge sentenced Dan with up to 90 years in prison.
Yikes.
He has a mandatory minimum of 30 years in prison before parole.
Dang.
I read something in a news article that said if all of his sentences did not run concurrently, he would have been sentenced to something like 253 years or something like that.
Wow. Okay.
So there's that. So even if he is somehow responsible for his daughter's disappearance, he's in jail essentially the rest of his life.
Yeah, he may get out in his 60s, but
maybe.
Yeah, if he's in good health, I don't know, years and years of drug abuse may keep him from ever seeing the light of day. Wow. Okay. Well, geez. Yeah. All right. Don't make meth, people. There's some big charges that go along with it.
Well, at a minimum. if your
Yeah.
house doesn't blow up.
Well, yeah, there's that too. I mean, there's all the other reasons not to make meth, but
that's a nice bullet point.
the prison time is a lot longer than I expected. So,
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do
yeah,
that.
yikes.
Yeah. Now, after this, I mean, rising up with Dan and Misty, everything essentially went quiet. There
Wow.
were no more answers. There were some leads that would kind of pop up, but then they would fizzle out. I mean, and the families of the missing girls were just floundering. And these poor parents, I can only imagine them sitting up at night thinking about what their girls could have been potentially going through. And I think your imagination would be your absolute worst enemy in this situation.
I can't even let my mind like go there.
Nope.
Mm-mm.
Can't do it. Then on November 14th, when the kids had been missing 120 days, their parents came together to write to the person they felt might be holding their little girls captive. It was published in the local paper as a desperate attempt at bringing the girls home. I'm going to read it, and I'm going to try to read it without crying. It read, quote, "To whom it may concern. We would use your name, but we don't know who you are. Or maybe we do. Maybe you are someone who knows the girls. Maybe you are someone who just acted upon an impulse. Maybe you plan to take them. We don't know, because we don't know who you are. Maybe we can sort of imagine that you must not have had the things you needed to grow up feeling safe and loved, because only someone who hurts inside would hurt other people and their family. Taking the girls from us has caused much pain. Pain for them, pain for us, and our families. Since the time you took them, maybe you've wondered more than a few times how you could ever make it right. How to be the hero, not the monster. We want you to know that we are praying for you to do the right thing. By releasing the girls, everyone wins, even you. Imagine how it would feel to have everyone remember that you were the one person in all the missing person cases who cared enough to let the girls go. Our lives had not been the same since July 13th. Please let our girls come home to us. Please do the right thing. Be a hero. Sincerely, Drew and Heather, Dan and Misty."
I don't know who did the majority of that writing, but that was beautifully written. I mean, it just says everything. Like you hear the desperation, but also the kindness, like I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that I would have such kind things to say as to, I imagine that you may have had it rough. I don't know that I would have had the ability to even think for a second about what this person may have had to go through.
And who
Beautiful.
knows if that was maybe even an angle, to
Sure, of
let this
course.
person know compassion. But yeah, the fact that you can even write that
Right, right.
shows a lot of emotional maturity,
Sure.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure it was an angle, and very smart.
very
Um,
smart. Yeah.
but yeah, to actually say it, man. Wow.
Mm.
Okay.
In the series Taken Together, Amber Collins, Elizabeth's younger sister and Lyric's cousin, who honestly couldn't be more than 6 years old,
Oh.
wrote a song and sang it on video. So yeah, it is brutal.
I'm never watching this. I just can't. No.
Quote, "Elizabeth and Lyric," and she sings it in her tiny little voice
Of
too. I'm not going to
course.
sing it because I can't do it justice, but she sings it to this little tune. It says, "Elizabeth and Lyric." Sorry, I'm going to need a moment. "I need you back in my hands, in my heart, my tiny little heart. I miss you, I miss you. I love you, I love you. Oh, forever." End quote. So,
Mm.
and I think that's the other piece of it is we keep saying, or at least I keep saying, the parents, but there are siblings that have lost their sisters.
And
And how do you explain, like, we just can't find your sister?
so that's what I was thinking. Not only did they lose their sibling, which is trauma, but the way You can't even give them answers. You can't even give them closure.
Right.
You now are they going to be afraid to leave the house? Are they going to be afraid to ride their bikes? Are you going to be like so traumatized that you never let them? Like it just the ripple effect, man. The ripple effect.
Yep. Yep. Ooh. On Wednesday, December 5th, 2012, about 5 months after the girls went missing, hunters, enjoying the last day of the season, entered the Seven Bridges Wildlife Park, a wildlife area about 20 miles from where the girls were last seen.
Wow, 20 miles.
25 miles. Yeah, far.
Wow.
Following a group of deer, one hunter traveled farther back into the woods than he normally would have. In a later interview, he said it was as if a bigger force than him was guiding him. From the corner of his eye, he saw a piece of pink cloth. When he removed it, he found a human skull looking back at him. It was at that moment that he realized he was standing in the midst of a nightmare. Human remains and little girls' clothing were scattered all around the area. Lyric and Elizabeth had been found. But who had done this? Who had done this? They still didn't know. Leads were not coming together. And then on May 20th, 2013, 10 months after the abduction of Lyric and Elizabeth and 5 months after their bodies were found, it happened again.
Oh.
A 15-year-old girl and her 12-year-old friend were abducted from a Dayton, Iowa bus stop right next to an elementary school as they were walking home from school. This was only about 100 miles or about an hour and a half drive from where Lyric and Elizabeth disappeared. But in this case, the 12-year-old escaped, and what she revealed would turn this case on its head. And I will tell you all about it in part 2.
Oh man. Ooh, I have chill bumps and so many questions that I can't ask until next week. But already knowing how rare these kinds of abductions are, the fact that one happened, 100 miles away
Also in
within a
Iowa.
year. Yeah, within like a year. I mean, if they're not related,
We're going to talk all about it because there are those that think it is and those that think it is not. Let me give some quick information here. If you have any information about the circumstances surrounding the disappearance and deaths of Lyric or Elizabeth, please call the Evansdale Police Tip Line. And there's a $150,000 reward raised privately and by the FBI, leading to an arrest and conviction in this case. And the Cedar Valley Crime Stoppers has offered a $50,000 reward for anybody coming forward that simply leads to an arrest. So if you know anything, please get in touch with law enforcement. There is a reward, even though I don't know if you can help solve a crime. The reward is just the reward. But, please make sure that if you were in that area, if you saw anything, definitely get in touch with law enforcement. Gosh, I would love to see somebody brought to justice for this.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Mm-mm. Okay. Well, I recognized the names, but I don't think I was super familiar with this case, probably because it is kids, and I just was like, nope.
Mhm.
Um. So yeah, I will be really curious to find out more next week.
Yeah. We're going to cover so I will tell you, I don't have a ton of information about how the bodies were found. The police department has kept all of that under wraps very well.
Oh, that's very similar to Delphi too. There's a lot
Uh-huh.
of similarities to Delphi.
And they are not, I mean, they are, and I will tell you, that's how they're ruling people out so quickly, is because they've kept so much
Mm-hmm.
that they're able to rule people out. Because of course they have these wackos that want to take
Oh, of
credit for
course.
it and
Sure, sure.
all this stuff. But they have kept a lot of the nitty gritty, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
to themselves. Um, but I think they're doing it again. I feel like responsible is like the word of the day, because I feel like they're doing it in a very responsible way. So I do not have a ton of details on that. However, I do have a lot of details on the suspects. And, it's almost like when you're going through these suspects, it's like profiling at its best. It's like a pro and con list of, do we think this person did it, or did they not? Law enforcement has an idea, but then it would seem common knowledge is something else. But again, because law enforcement hasn't revealed a lot of what they know, when they say they've ruled somebody out, we don't know what ruled them out. They don't even tell us why they were ruled out. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's left a lot of speculation open. Like, is law enforcement actually doing everything that they need to do, crossing their I's and dotting their T's? Or because they haven't revealed any information, has there not been any checks and balances? So that's when it gets really interesting when talking about suspects.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
So is it Branch of Hope time?
Yes, yes,
Please.
please.
Please. So, as we talked about, Branch of Hope, a portion of all of our sponsorships and subscriptions go directly to a nonprofit organization that we partner with every month. This month, it is Season of Justice. Season of Justice is a nonprofit dedicated to providing funding for investigative agencies and families to help solve cold cases and bring resolution to those impacted by unsolved violent crimes. What I like about them is they are open to families that need support, and they are also open to small law enforcement agencies that need some extra help on cold cases. Um, if there are any leads, they will help rule in or out assailants. And they are currently working, I think it was 231 cases that they have on their plate right now. And it's just amazing. They work through grants and then also through donations like we are providing to them. So through your dollars, you are helping to, again, I don't want to use the word justice too many times, but truly, you are helping to give families closure, to give victims names, to unmask the monsters. You are doing that this month, and that is so rewarding to Cynthia and I to be part of that. And I hope that you feel some of that too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, listeners, join us back next week. We've got to spread the
It's
word
a
on this case.
it's a doozy.
It's a doozy. It's a
It's a
doozy.
doozy of a
Yeah.
case. Yeah, come back next week because I want to tell you about all these suspects, and you can let me know what you think. We'll also talk a little bit about the Delphi case. Obviously, we have some resolution to that one, but again, what are the similarities between these two cases? Knowing there are less than 20 of these in the past 50 years, they've got to be related, right? Or at least the psychology of it, right?
Well, and the thing is with the Delphi, I mean, we know the guy, and I still don't think we understand why he did it. Like, it
Yeah,
almost feels like from what I've had a hard time following that one. That one's so dark.
yeah,
Um, but from what I know, it was almost like a one-off with him.
yeah. Yeah, and
So so weird.
he was a local. I
Yeah.
mean, he was local to the area.
Yeah.
And so that's what some people have said is, well, then our guy must be local to Iowa. And again, we'll talk more about this other abduction that happened within a year, within 100
Mhm.
miles.
That's weird.
What are
Now
the odds of that happening?
the profiling would be interesting because Delphi, the bodies were left there. Here, the bodies were moved. Um, Again, not being a profiler myself, but I would almost say that that could point more towards a local because you want to get the distance. You
Maybe.
want to put some distance between you. So if you're local, if you live right on this lake, if you live at, anywhere in the area, then, you might want to put some distance. Again, I have no idea what I'm talking about. This is just my,
Well,
from,
we'll explore that together.
but yeah. Okay. Next week.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.